Good evening and welcome. I'm Chris Parnell.
Reporting from Moscow.
Tbilisi.
Times Square.
May your dreams be your only boundaries in life.
Welcome to Let's Talk Money. My name is Harvey Cook and I thank you for tuning in. I'm very excited to welcome our guest today, Billy Orgel, to our program. He's not only a successful businessman, but he is a very active member of the community. As the president of Tower Ventures, Mr. Orgel is part of a dynamic telecommunications industry. With changing technology and regulations, this industry needs visionary leadership, and Billy Orgel has a proven track record as a leader. In addition to this role, Mr. Orgel is also a real estate developer, serves on the Shelby County School Board, and is one of the owners of the Memphis Grizzlies. So without further ado, let's talk money. Welcome to the show, Billy.
Harvey, thanks for having me.
Glad you're here. Tell us a little bit about your background to start off with.
Well, I grew up here in Memphis, and I know we're in a Shelby County school right now, Germantown High School, and I was educated partly in what was Memphis City Schools, Shelby County Schools. Went to the University of Texas at Austin, followed my sister there, and moved back to Memphis after graduation in 1985. My father had a communications electronics business, and my mother had passed away, and he needed some help in the business. And I'd gotten my real estate degree and my license in Texas. Also had it in Tennessee, and decided to come back to Memphis and join my dad in the business. And that was in the mid-'80s is when, and I know this is hard for our students to imagine here, but we didn't have cell phones.
Oh, no.
And we might have had a pager, but those were kind of expensive
Right,
too.
right.
And we started selling cell phones back when the system turned on here in Memphis. And we were also selling two-way radios, which I think probably in the school they use them, security will use them, or some of the staff will use them, like walkie-talkies.
Right.
And we began buying licenses from the government. And what's interesting, besides the fact that people didn't have cell phones back then, licenses were, and the cell license even for Memphis was basically free. So if you would build it, and there were just two of them, one of them went to the phone company, which was Bell South. The second one went to a group of investors, and they basically picked the names out of a hat. And so you could have owned the cellular system in New York City. So we actually owned two-way radio licenses, which were the ability to communicate on radios, not cell phones, but so dispatch, concrete trucks, those kind of people would use them, security companies, plumbers, contractors. And in the early 90s, we sold that business and got into the cell tower business after that.
And can you give us just a quick 1-minute description of what it's like to be in the cell tower business? And because we see cell towers as we drive around, you know, are those your towers or people like you, and how does that work?
Well, it from the mid-'90s when we got into the business up until today, it's slowed a little bit, but there were about, by the mid-'90s, there were about 8 or 9 entrants in each market. And so they had a voracious appetite for cell towers. And so many of the cell towers, we're actually now, we just sold about 200 of them, and we've sold 400 to 500 over time. But we started out with 4. Really? And went through a series of building, and very dynamic. And most of the players, you've only got really 4 or 5 cell companies left, which would be T-Mobile, Sprint, AT&T, Verizon, and then in this market you have C-Spire. But they all need to cover everywhere. They need their phone to work everywhere. And so they couldn't get them built quick enough, so they turned to people like us at Tower Ventures and said, can you do the coverage here? So if we're in Germantown now, we built trees out here, probably 2 or 3 towers that look like trees. We built towers that look like flagpoles. In Collierville, we actually took a park and took the ball field lights down and put up something that looked like ball field lights, and they had lights on them, but they're actually cell towers. And the one thing we hadn't done, we planned it, is a church steeple, and we're in a city with a lot of churches, our community, a lot of churches. We just hadn't gotten to that one yet.
Right. Billy, I know that you're also on the school board. Tell us about your involvement there.
Well, so as the students know, and probably a lot of our listeners know, about 4.5 years ago, there was a lot of saber rattling in the community about municipal schools. And the people wanted their own home control. And I followed it closely. And as a business person in the community, somebody that wants their children, and I've got one son, I've got 3 children, one of them who's actually moved back here and works with me in Tower Ventures and has gotten involved in the community, which is great. We want our children to move back to this community. It's a great place. My grandparents lived here, my parents lived here. I live here, my kids live here. We want to be here. And my wife, Robin, and I were actually out of town, and we sat and talked about what I could do other than financially to make a difference in the community, and besides being on boards and being involved in things. And I had followed closely the school board saga, the fact that we had Memphis City Schools, Shelby County Schools. Memphis City was going to give up its charter. It was going to become one school system, but there was a fight over the municipal schools, and I said I'd like to become involved in that. And I applied got appointed to the Shelby County School Board, which was a combination. It had 23 people, but a combination of 9 people from the Memphis School Board, 7 people from the then Shelby County Board, and then 7 new people. And I think someone, because they didn't like me, nominated me for chairman, and everybody said, great, you could be chairman.
Right.
So I served in that capacity for 2 years, but it was an exciting time. And I think we've got competition in our community with schools now, and I've been elected. I served for a year, and I've been elected twice to serve. East Memphis is basically my district.
And from your standpoint, how is the health now of the Shelby County and city school system?
Well, I think it's precarious, and we've got a school right now. We're in Germantown. Germantown is part of Shelby County Schools, but the rest of the Germantown schools, other than ones with their name Germantown in them, are not.
Right.
So it's confusing a little bit to someone from the outside.
Right.
But I think that we're all trying to work together, and everybody cares deeply about the success of the children in the community. But in Shelby County schools, because you've got such a high poverty rate, it becomes that much harder. And that's got to do with the ability of the family to get involved. That has to do with the ability of the child to have the background knowledge, the reading skills, the language skills, the word knowledge when they get into kindergarten, first grade. And so I think that we're making some strides. Our superintendent, Dorsey Hobson's, doing a fantastic job, and we've got a plan by 2025 that most of our children are going to go to college or post-secondary education, and they're going to graduate close to on time. And so I think we're making some strides as a community, but we've got a long way to go, and funding may be one of our biggest problems.
It's a good place to stop now, but that's a good message. It's time to take a short break, and we'll be back in just a moment more with Let's Talk Money.
Make a difference. Pass it on. A message from the Foundation for a Better Life.
Happy birthday!
Thank you, dear, very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
You make me feel so young. You make me feel so spring has sprung. And every time I see you,
you're not fooling anybody you know. Think young. Pass it on.
the moment that you speak.
A message from the Foundation for a Better Life.
Play.
Welcome back to Let's Talk Money. If you're just tuning in, I'm Harvey Cook, and today we've been talking with Billy Orgel, who's president of Tower Ventures. Billy, we were talking about the school system, and I know there's more that you want to talk about there, so go ahead.
Well, yeah, so when we went to break, we're talking about the finances, which are a big problem. And actually, Shelby County Schools is involved or will be involved in a lawsuit with the state to even fund education through the BEP, or the Basic Education Program, I think is the acronym, what it stands for, to get more funding into the school system. But what the problem is now is Shelby County Schools are basically what was Memphis City Schools plus the unincorporated areas, because you've carved out the municipal areas. And we're left with the legacy cost and funding, meaning 200 schools, buildings. The average size of a high school in the municipalities is 1,800. The average size of a high school in what's now Shelby County Schools is 900. Wow. It's not very efficient. Right. And we're left with the retiree costs, the retiree benefits, and a lot of things that the municipalities aren't burdened with. Plus, they've got growing tax bases that are able to fund the schools, and they're able to allocate money from their municipalities to help the school system. So we've got a fundamental structural problem. And if you follow, and this is a problem with the community with the high poverty rate, if you follow, and I don't remember if it was Time Magazine or one of the national think tanks, but basically said in the city of Memphis, and they divided the income levels into quintiles. So the chance, and you probably even talked about this in your program, if you're in the lowest quintile as far as income level, the chance in our community and staying here, getting to the highest quintile was 2 to 4%. So basically, you're selling hopelessness to somebody who grows up in tough circumstances. And I don't think our country's built on that. Right. I think it was always you could pull yourself up by your bootstraps. And you're from Knoxville, right?
Memphis.
You're from Memphis?
Right.
But your brother-in-law's from Knoxville.
Right.
My mother grew up near Knoxville, right, and she had immigrant parents, right, that made something of themselves and were in the bottom 20.
So is there a plan? Is there a plan now to try to help that situation?
Yes, and that I think what the superintendent has come up with is our 2025 plan, which I talked about earlier, right, which is about the graduation rate, being able to have a post-secondary opportunity. I got you. And those are important things. And it all starts, and this is a problem across the state, and it's a problem across the country, with literacy. You can't read. I don't care what you can't right, do science, right, you can't do math, you can't take a test. People have got to learn how to read, and intervention in reading is tough. I had 2 children that I tutored at South Park Elementary last year, and one of them was an English language learner, and the other one was just a younger kid that was born in this country. And it's tough. They got into 3rd grade and they couldn't read, and you just get further and further behind. Right. So reading is something that's very important to our children, and being able to do it.
I got you. Can we shift gears for a minute? I know that you've been involved in real estate, and I think I've read that you've bought real estate downtown, maybe in some areas that have not been developed yet. I'm not so much interested in you talking about your real estate as I am hearing about what your vision is for downtown and how the buildings go down there and that type of thing.
Sure. The downtown is probably the best real estate market in the city. Mm-hmm. You get that. We're in mostly apartments, but we've got commercial as well, and the rental rates per square foot are better downtown than anywhere else in the community. I'd hate to go out publicly and say that, so then any of our viewers go, wait a second, why am I developing out here in Collierville?
You just said it, though, publicly.
I did, yeah, I shouldn't have said it.
Right.
But, and it's because it's a public-private partnership, just like education is.
Right.
And we work with the Downtown Commission, and we work on the tax structure. And if you like to build things, it's a great place to be. There's a lot of wonderful cities that are around us. Atlanta, Charlotte, Nashville, Austin, all booming. But the one thing we have is a lot of older historic buildings, and we've got if you look at it architecturally, we've got a beautiful downtown.
Right.
It's not just a bunch of glass and steel skyscrapers. I mean, they do that everywhere in the world. And but what I've been a part of, and it started with my father-in-law, who you're friends with, is he had a men's clothing store. He was downtown on the mall where the trolley runs, pedestrian traffic. And I always liked his buildings. They were built at the turn of the century, and not 2000. They're not millennials. They're like turn of 1900 century. And I bought the buildings. We developed them one by one. We used a program called the Historic Tax Credits from the National Park Service, the federal government, which incents you to develop buildings. And we started out small, built a building with 15 units, built another one with 33, built another with 14. And then we actually redeveloped a hole in the ground in downtown Memphis. We partnered with the great developer, Henry Turley, and we did that. We did the Van Vliet building. And so we've done about 500 apartments that we've completed, and the occupancy is in the high 90s. And it tells you it's a vibrant market, it's a mixed market. The demographics are fantastic. You got young people mostly with good jobs. They're of all faiths, all races. Most don't have kids, most have a dog, that kind of thing. But downtown is a vibrant, walkable community. You've got entertainment around you. You got parks around you. You've got the river down there. It's just a fantastic market. And our most ambitious project involved, we're involved in the Central Station project, which is amazing. You've got developers that haven't been downtown since the aftermath of 1968, the assassination of Dr. King, like the Wilson family coming downtown to do a hotel. Malco's opening a new movie theater downtown. We're involved, which I've spent a lot of time on, the Tennessee Brewery, which was one of the largest regional brewers up until 1954. And the building has basically been vacant since 1984. It was sold when it closed because of national competition and advertising. Anheuser-Busch, Miller, these big companies kind of took over the brewing business. The smaller guys couldn't compete. And the building has sat vacant. And the windows are knocked out of it. There's 250 windows, and one of them has glass in it. And we brought attention to it last year, and it was actually another group brought attention to it, which got me interested 2 years ago. And we had what was called the Revival, which was, it wasn't a church event. It was a beer garden, and my son and several of his friends operated for 2 months a pop-up beer garden, and about 50,000 people came through there.
Wow. And
they had food trucks and music. They even had an artist series where a different artist came in for 8 weeks and created a piece of art. So I love downtown Memphis, and I think we've got some great projects going on right now.
Cool. Let's take a break now. We'll be right back soon with more Let's Talk Money.
Hey, let me get that for you.
Everybody needs a helping out. That ain't what it's all about. Tell me what.
Thank you, young man.
What can I
No problem.
What can I do?
Courtesy. Pass it on.
I got it.
A message from the Foundation for a Better Life.
GHS-TV has a new website. You can now view any of our shows on our new media pages. Or check out the latest Wake Up Germantown or Red Devil postgame. As always, we're streaming live 24/7. Just visit ghstv.org today.
Thank you for joining us on Let's Talk Money. Today we're honored to have with us Billy Orgel, who's president of Tower Ventures. Let's talk a little bit, Billy, about let's talk about the Grizzlies. I know you're one of the owners, and I'm not so much interested in what you think of the basketball team. Everybody's got an opinion about that, but talk about how they fit into the community, the importance, what you see for that going forward.
Well, I got involved we're a unique community because going back to 2000, and I actually served on one of the conditions when Michael Heisley, the former owner, brought the team to Memphis from Vancouver, was he gets a new arena. So we had the Pyramid, which is an unbelievable transformation into Bass Pro Shops.
Right.
I have to say, I don't know if you've been there.
Right.
But it's fantastic. But the condition was we build a new arena, and Mayor Rout, who was the county mayor, Mayor Harrington, who was the city mayor, did an unbelievable job in convincing this community that we can build this new arena, we can afford it, we can let it pay for itself through the seat tax and for the ticket tax, use rental car, and they had some sources of funds. And the community, Memphis and Shelby County, would kick in a little bit of capital money, and then the Grizzlies would be the ones responsible for operating any losses. That got the Grizzlies to come to town, played 3 years in the Pyramid, and now I think are we on our 15th or 16th season? I can't remember.
Sure. Yeah.
But you had a local ownership group. The chemistry might not have been as great between that local ownership group and Michael Heisley, but maybe failing health or whatever, and he's since deceased, decided to sell the team. And you had the local ownership group get reconstituted and become much wider. And our new owner, the majority owner is Robert Pera. The local ownership group probably contains about 15, 20, I've never really counted individuals, but people who have a vested interest in Memphis. And I can tell you from those negotiations back 3 years ago, the only thing that everyone cared about was not making money, which is wonderful about this community, but that we had professional basketball in this community and that the Grizzlies stayed. No one was interested in running the team. They were interested in owning it because it was going to be Memphis's team. And you've got, and I have to say, just because Staley Cates, Pitt Hyde, I mean, most people know who all the owners are. Right. I mean, they doubled down from the first time, put more money back in, and decided that this was going to be a great thing for the city. And I think it's I saw it, and I wasn't an owner. I've been a season ticket holder, and I was on the new Memphis Arena Public Building Authority that built the new building. As I was traveling one day, I picked up a USA Today. I think it might have been 2001, and there were some Got Milk commercials, and they used to do it, and there would be, it might have been aligned with the NBA, and there was a picture of Pau Gasol with a milk mustache, and he was like Rookie of the Month or something. I'm going, man, that's great. We're on ESPN every night. We were the lead-in on ESPN, I think, when Matt Barnes hit his game winner. Right. It was the very first thing at 7 in the morning or 8 in the morning, every half hour. But my involvement is strictly civic, and I'm not involved in any player trades. I'm not involved in any strategy sessions. Right. We're I guess like if you owned, because you're in the investment business, if we owned Coca-Cola, we could go to the shareholders meeting. Right. And so we're invited as owners, and we get updates, and but we're not actively involved in ownership, but we support the team and buy plenty of seats, donate to the Grizzlies Foundation, and I think most of the owners really take it seriously and have a heightened sense of our team and its success.
We see a lot of community involvement from the players. And I'm just wondering if that's something that's required of them. They do it on their own. How does that work?
I think it's so most people don't realize there's two sides to the basketball team. There's the operations side, who coincidentally, the operations side is run by my real estate partner Jason Wexler, who I first developed buildings with downtown, and Jason runs the operations side, so he runs the parking, the concession stands, the arena, anything to do with selling tickets, merchandising. That's run by Jason and his group. So then you've got the basketball side, which is Chris Wallace, who that's a household name. And that's probably the most interesting. Jason, they both do a lot of hard work, but because Chris is dealing with the players and the contracts on a day-to-day basis, that gets a lot more attention. And so there's a kind of a division of responsibility. So the players are under contract. There's a whole collective bargaining agreement. And I think most of what they do is because they want to do it. When you saw Zach Randolph, I think a while back, taking some kids down to the Polar Express Railroad down in Batesville, Mississippi, that's because Zach wanted to do that. Or if they're over at La Bonheur or St. Jude or some of our other wonderful institutions. Boys and Girls Club, Zach was there, doing a Christmas tree lighting. It's because they want to do it. And I think you've got to have the right kind of player that fits in Memphis. There's not a lot of endorsement deals here. And we've only had, I think our first voted All-Star might have been Marc Gasol last year. So you're not getting the attention that Carmelo Anthony gets or Kevin Durant gets or Kobe gets or LeBron. You got to find, in my opinion, a player that fits in our, and we've got, you can just run down the roster.
Oh, yeah.
They fit well into our community and the grit and grind and the way we are here in Shelby County in the city of Memphis.
They have been great for Memphis. Billy, you've been talking about all these different things you're doing. How do you schedule things so that you get everything done that you need to do with as much as you have to do?
I think and I was lucky, and luck plays hard work and luck, they go hand in hand.
Right.
But the cell phone, and I can tell you because you play golf and I play golf, and sometimes it's distracting on the golf. It is, to me, one of the greatest inventions of the last 50 years because it opens things up. I mean, when you start talking about virtual office, you can do your work at 5 in the morning or 5 at night. You don't have to be sitting in one place. You can work at lunch in your car. You can work at Starbucks or Panera or wherever you go. So I think that's really opened things up. You don't have to be in one place. And I don't get bogged down in the details either. And that's what really helps me. I don't have a lot of, my office is kind of thin. Right. I don't have a lot of people there, but we've got a lot of hardworking people. And between my dad and I, because I took over his building, I've got employees that have been there 40 years, their only job. So I knew them when I was 12 years old. And so I think you treat people right, don't get bogged down in the details, and I really don't get down in the weeds. I mean, we have a weekly meeting at Tower Ventures. It takes about 2 hours. We go through what our leasing, we go through what's going on with our construction, and when people get into the minutia, I'm saying, look, y'all handle that outside of the meeting. Let's not take 8 people's time to talk about something that maybe you could have talked about before. And and if something doesn't work out, I forget about it and I move on to the next thing. And so I told my wife I was shallow. She says, no, you're not shallow. You just have the ability to forget when something doesn't go your way. So I think that serves me well.
We're going to have you back on the show sometime. I got a lot more questions that I want to ask, but we will get you back at some point. Once again, we want to thank our guest, Billy Orgel, president of Tower Ventures, for joining us today. We hope this show provided valuable insight into the keys to success both professionally and personally, and we encourage each of you in your future endeavors. We hope you will join us again next month on Let's Talk Money.